This week, Ian Gray from Flashpoint joins us to discuss learning from the recent leaks tied to threat actor groups such as LockBit and Black Basta. Then in the security news, practical exploit code, and what even is that? Old vulnerabilities, new attackers, AI and web scraping. The battle continues. 0 days, you gotta prove it. The WinRAR also has a 0 day. LLM patch diffing, a $20 million bug bounty. Your APT is showing. Hacking from the routers. It's that easy, huh? NIST guidance on AI. Words have meaning. Developers knowingly push vulnerable code. And also, just a note so I don't forget, my Hackberry Pie post is live. Perhaps we'll touch on that again, all that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Whenever we talk to security teams, one thing is clear. They are under more pressure than ever, facing increasingly complex and higher stakes threats. That's where Flashpoint comes in. Flashpoint empowers organizations to make mission-critical decisions to keep their people and assets safe. Flashpoint combines cutting-edge technology with expert intelligence teams, empowering security leaders with the critical data and alerts and analysis needed to act before threats escalate. And with Ignite, Flashpoint's award-winning threat intelligence platform, you get access to real-time insights, finished intelligence, and analytics all in one place. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Flashpoint. Coming to you live from the Hacker Syndicate studio, this is Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 888, being recorded on Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. I'm Paul Asadorian, joined by the triumphant returning Mr. Bill Swearingen.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
And you look familiar. You sound familiar. Who are you?
I like your background still looks kind of familiar.
Hey, I am in a new place, an amazing new place. Happy to be back. I got to tell you, it's been a rough couple months, but I'm back in business. So let's do it.
Good to see you smiling. Josh Marpet is here with us. Josh, welcome.
It's always good. I'm glad I'm back. It was vacation and all sorts of craziness, but I'm here and I'm happy as hell to be here. This is great.
Miss Mandy Logan is here with us. Mandy, welcome back.
Why, thank you. And yes, I got to spend 2 weeks in Vegas with just all kinds of hacker nerdery going on.
Nice.
So much.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Glad you're back on the show. Mr. Jeff Mann is here with us. Jeff, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
Jeff's like, let's get into it. All right. I got 2 announcements to read. 2.5, really. ISW 2025. It's InfoSec World. You can attend InfoSec World 2025. It'll be happening on October 27th through the 29th at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. With pre-event workshops on October 25th through the 26th, and post-event workshops on October 29th through the 30th. Connect, learn, and level up your cyber game. Save 25% with the code ISW25-SW at securityweekly.com/ISW 2025. Let's see, on August 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, mark your calendars, tune into Securing the Backbone, Strategies to Counter Cyber Threats to Critical Infrastructure in the Public Sector. Hear from top experts in energy, transportation, healthcare, and more as they share real-world attacks and proven defenses. Register now for your complimentary access with the code CSS25-SW at securityweekly.com/get ready, CSS Infra 2025, INFRA 2025. Hopefully those will be in the show notes so you can just go click those links. So make sure you visit the show notes page. Okay. This segment is sponsored by Flashpoint. You can visit securityweekly.com/Flashpoint to learn more. Recent leaks tied to LockBit and Black Basta have exposed the inner workings of 2 of the most notorious ransomware groups, revealing their tactics, negotiation strategies, and operational infrastructure. Here to tell us what it all means is Ian Gray, VP of Intelligence from Flashpoint. Ian focuses on cybercrime intelligence and actively researches cyber criminal fraud venues and misuse of new and emerging technologies. He holds a master's degree from Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs, where he studied cyber policy. Ian's also an adjunct professor at Fordham University Cybersecurity program. Ian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Paul. Good to be here.
It's good to have you here, Ian. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you came to be at Flashpoint looking into threat actor groups and what they're up to.
It was serendipity, I guess. Like all things, life is just showing up sometimes. So my story in a nutshell, I was in the Navy, active duty, got out, didn't know what to do next, was in grad school, was just thinking about, I don't know, my next career step, my next career move. I saw a random posting for Flashpoint that was looking for people that were ready to do some just grunt admin work. And I said, yeah, I'll check that out. And 11 years later, here I am. At that time, I didn't have much of a cyber background. In the Navy, I was a surface warfare officer, so primarily driving ships, doing that sort of thing, being an engineer like in the engine room. And so I picked up a lot of stuff from the intel reports that were previously written. I got to meet a lot of great analysts that kind of showed me the ropes and what to study and who the threat actors are and where they operate. And it was an exciting time because this is, I guess, 2014 when I first started, more or less, when there was a lot of stuff going on. There was, Silk Road was just taken down. Anonymous and LulzSec were causing leaks and havoc on Stratfor and HB Gary.
2014, you worked with our mutual friend, Allison Nixon?
I did. Well, I think it was a year or two after that. But yeah.
Was it? Okay.
I worked with her probably 2015.
Oh, yeah, because that was before we used to podcast in my basement, and she would come on the show.
Yeah.
So that's
and Brian Hine
that was
as well.
prior to 2015.
Yeah, Brian Hine was there too, yeah. I just saw Brian out in Vegas.
Oh, did you? I
Yeah.
haven't seen him in years.
At the CW meetup, he was there. He's a character. I guess we're all characters here. But anyways, like,
true.
Yeah, so people like Allison, like, I got to learn a lot from her. She was always just finding the newest things. And I guess, like, you, Paul, like the things that are damaging, like, hey, this isn't an issue now, but, if you don't patch these devices or don't, update these protocols, this could be a large botnet, or SIM swapping could be an issue, as well as authentication attacks by groups. And so I just got to learn a lot over the last couple of years, progressively learning more and more. As far as education, it wasn't in my bio, but I'm finishing up my PhD in computer science at NYU, where I also have done a few papers and have just worked with a lot of great researchers, primarily on ransomware. So I've just been very fortunate to learn from a lot of great people in the industry and hopefully give back some of that knowledge through my teaching. Yeah.
Ransomware is an interesting topic. I feel like it reached a peak. It's interesting. Like there's definitely, if there have been conference talks about like the history of ransomware.
Yeah.
However, I think if it was given today, it'd be kind of interesting to tack on the past, 10 or 15 years, to some of those talks, because it started out very small. It started out targeting individuals. Then they started targeting companies, right? To whereas now it's kind of just like one of the things that they do. I feel like it's reached its plateau.
Yeah. So I like the term commodity ransomware, which was like everything pre-2019, like pre-Maze targeting Allied Universal and the ransomware blogs and big game hunting and double extortion. It was just targeting, as you highlighted, individuals, mass broad-based attacks, maybe exploiting a certain vulnerability, but it would be like your grandma and your neighbor that were getting ransomed. And it was typically $300.
And they even ransomwared some TVs back in the day, because it transferred over into like IoT devices and firmware-based stuff.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I spent a lot of my time,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
There was like a brief period in time where they were ransomwaring your TV.
Yeah. But if people are willing to pay for something, they'll try to extort you. And so we had this surge, I would say, which coincided with COVID and remote work, where we just had a surge of ransomware groups like Ransomware as a Service, like COP and Conti and LockBit. And as you highlighted, I feel like it's kind of leveled out. and maybe leveling isn't the right word, because I've definitely seen an increase in the number of groups.
Right.
We're working on a blog right now, and I want to say there's been like 56 or so, like maybe between like 50 and 60 groups that have sprung up over the last year. And they're not all encryption, like they're not all doing ransomware. They're just extortion, like World Leaks, which is, a rebranding of another group. I think Karakurt and Hive, they do just straight extortion. Like, let's not bother with the ransomware development. Let's just steal the data, get our foot in the door, and then, charges people to get their data back. And if they don't pay, we'll kind of up the ante. We'll do a DDoS attack, or we'll do a extortion, like a blackmail, right? Just threaten to leak photos, threaten their family, that sort of thing. So the tactics get kind of worse and increasingly persuasive to get people to pay a ransom. But yeah, we've seen a lot more groups over the last year that are just going for the straight extortion play. And it does seem like it's become just sort of the background noise of cybercrime, where for a while we would see these large attacks targeting these large companies and industries. And to a certain extent, we still see that. But still, there's just a lot of other attacks which are targeting small and medium-sized businesses through, I don't know, maybe conventional attack vectors. If that's
yeah.
the
So
right term.
I think that, so Ian, I see that too. And I think it's opportunistic, right?
Yeah.
So like, especially for the small and medium sized businesses, just they're looking at Shodan or whatever, and they have a specific exploit in mind and target whoever, happens to have that particular device, I think,
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff which, a lot of other attack vectors which might be exploited, right? Like Google has reported about the phishing attacks targeting Salesforce.
Yeah.
Again, that's a straight extortion play. Initial, what am I looking for? Info stealers, like we talked about, I guess a few months ago. That's also an initial access vector, which we saw with Snowflake last summer, or Snowflake customers being actively exploited. So there's a lot of still broad-based attacks or just using common attack vectors, but there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit, like, weak authentication, which threat actors are able to exploit to get a foot in the door.
Well, you're describing, I'm hearing a description of growth, and yet this started with its plateauing. Is
Yes.
part of it that it's just not a headline grabber anymore, so we're not hearing about it?
Yeah, I think that plays into it, Jeff. I agree with that.
Yeah,
Ian?
that's a good summary.
I mean, I think the 2025 Verizon DBER report dropped yesterday or today. I don't think it didn't make it to my show notes for the news segment. Not that I'd have time to digest it, so maybe we'll visit that next week. But I'm curious as to what the numbers show in terms of this hypothesis that it's kind of plateauing.
Well, I can tell you what I've seen, and Ian, I'm really interested to see your response to what I'm getting ready to say. But what I've seen over the last year is I have seen a dramatic rise in new groups, right? So the group name is, whatever, I'm not going to name anything right now, but so then I go out and I start doing my research on this group, and there's nothing, right? Like, so yeah, maybe they may be a rename of this, or maybe this was a splinter of that group or whatever, but we don't know tactics. We don't know IOCs. We don't know what they're using because there's a new name, but then you start digging in, and it kind of does start to feel like they're all doing kind of, they're all doing kind of the same stuff, I guess. I don't know. I'm just curious.
Wait, I have a question on that, which I kind of hate to ask, but I feel like I must. Is that in part because of AI, like because of people having access to generative AI faster?
In terms of what? Like in terms of like gaining
Well, you said like
access?
new groups popping up, the faster that they are popping up. And just curious, is that part of being enabled because of generative AI or other things that have...
So I wonder, so I don't think it's AI, and I don't know. I'm just going to tell you, Mandy, I don't know. Ian, if you have an opinion here, I think it's to lower the amount of pressure there are on law enforcement against them. Like, so when you start talking about LockBit, right? Like LockBit was humongous, right? And they were doing, and they were pushing hard. And then all of a sudden there became a lot of law enforcement pressure to, hey, we have got to knock down that group, right? I think, in my opinion, it's because they want to kind of spread out the law enforcement pressure. But I don't know. Ian, what do you think on that?
I think that's definitely a factor, right? Make it more diffuse. And I'll address Mr. Jeff Mann's comment earlier. Like, yeah, plateauing was not the right term. Like, it is.
You're welcome to call me Jeff, by the way.
Yes, sir. But no, like, we definitely see an increase. Again, we have a blog coming out probably in the next couple of days or so where we've observed like 179% increase in ransomware blogs, like compared to this time next year. We're seeing between like 50 and 60 new groups emerge. And maybe to what Bill was saying, like the level of expertise in these groups is kind of diverse and diffuse. Like, I was checking out all the ransomware blogs for these groups, and some of them just had kind of like placeholder text, if that. Like, one group just had a logo and placed a logo. They just wrote out logo. Right? I feel like there was a time where there was like a little bit of like design and finesse, which I kind of enjoyed in visiting these websites, and then just kind of dropped off. Like, they're just extremely basic Tor posted blogs.
I can't remember the group name, but there was one that it was maybe last year, but you visited and it was like an old BBS. Like, you actually had to type like list victims and that was, I love that.
Or Akira?
Yeah, Akira. That's right. You're right. And I love that just that touch of style, right? I mean, listen, I don't want to give any props to these criminal groups, whatever, but a little bit of style goes a long way, So
I hate to do the same, but so we're just seeing a lot of different groups where, again, it's not those headline grabbing attacks that we saw maybe a few years ago, where again it feels like it's sort of just becoming part of this general background noise of attacks.
Ransomware was kind of like the shiny new hotness, and it was like the main topic everyone was focused on in terms of threat actor behavior. And now I feel like it's obviously still part of it. It may be growing in certain areas, but there's also a lot of info stealers. There's a lot of extortion going on. There's a lot of just stealing data from an info stealer and then going and reselling that data.
So I think info stealer is the new hotness, right, Paul? I think you're right.
That's how they're monetized. It's all about monetization. Like, they used to steal credit cards, and then PCI helped solve that problem, as we've said on the show many times, right? So then, threat actors had to pivot. I feel like ransomware was really popular, and then like pretty quickly we were like, well, if we can encrypt all the files, we can steal all that data first, and then we can do like the double attack, and we can say, okay, well, once we unencrypt it, you still got to pay me money because I won't sell it if you pay me money, extortion. But then I feel like a lot of threat actor groups, because they're criminals and unethical to begin with, were like, oh, I'm still going to sell it anyway. And then they were like, well, what if we were to just run campaigns that just steal stuff?
Yeah.
Because that, in my opinion, flies under the radar more. Like, if I was a criminal threat actor, I'd go for the more info stealer tactic, because then, like, it's faceless. It's nameless, flies under the radar. I can just steal stuff and go do my own thing and not have to interface with the company and cause an event that, reveals that there was some kind of attack. So that's kind of, I don't know, Ian, if you see it the same way. Jeff, you have a question in there?
Well, a comment. I was thinking about Mandy's question in the AI, and the fact that the ransomware isn't attention grabbing headlines anymore. I think the impact has been AI is now the attention grabbing headlines, at least from the segment of the media that is focused on helping vendors to sell their stuff. Because my big takeaway from Vegas, the black hat side of Vegas, was, wow, a lot of companies are running around betting the farm on AI, keeping them in business, frankly, and then go to DEF CON and find out how gloriously vulnerable AI is to all sorts of attacks because it's such a wild, wild west infancy. But I think that's the impact, Mandy. It's the headlines, or a segment of the headlines are steered towards we've seen this how many times in the last 30 years? The next new big shiny thing, the next silver bullet.
That's interesting. Like, I can agree on that to some level, but I also felt that because of a greater population globally having faster access to feeling like they know what they're doing when they're using generative AI and getting the feedback from it. So as they're, whatever, if they're crafting super fantastic phishing emails, or they are going through and doing other things, that it makes doing ransomware as a service on your own that much more of a commodity and that much faster. And where there would kind of go by.
It's a great question, Manny, a great point. But let's go to the data. So, Ian, a question for you. In the leaks that you've analyzed, do you see evidence that threat actor groups are using AI technology to advance that? Or is that kind of hidden? Like they may go buy an exploit or access to something, and maybe that group used some kind of AI, but it wasn't in the leak.
So I haven't seen it with the ransomware groups, but at the beginning of this call, we were talking about the North Korean threat actors, like the DPRK, IT workers.
The one that was just in FRAC. Yep.
Yeah, so I didn't read through the whole FRAC article. I perused it.
Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, it's fresh. It's new, you know?
But with InfoStealer logs, right, we identified, as I think a lot of other vendors did, that these DPRK IT workers had actually infected themselves, I think, with Luma InfoStealer. And they are using ChatGPT and other tools to develop resumes and to help with interviews, and help with the calls and at times the coding exercises. So there's definitely that use case, and I would say more groups are probably using it in some way, shape, or form, which isn't always evident to us. So
yeah, because it could. I mean, like one of my recent use cases, I love using Claude Code. I actually ran out of tokens today to analyze firmware and vulnerability, because I can ask it questions, right, and I can guide it and steer it, and I can say, "Wait, you don't have that tool. Hold on, let me go install it."
Is that
tell me what tools you need?
Is that like running out of quarters at the video arcade?
I think so.
Yeah, it's kind of similar.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to go buy it's like new video game arcades, we have to charge your card, so I have to go back and I had to put my credit card in and recharge my card.
Yeah, they don't take quarters anymore.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, nothing happens in a vacuum, right? Threat actors will always use the latest and greatest technology available.
Right.
Porn and crime, it's what drives the internet.
Yes. Can we quote you? Put that on a t-shirt?
Sure, go to town.
Okay. But yeah, we're constantly learning from these threat actor groups, and Black Basta and LockBit were two just notable recent examples where we had leaks that we were able to analyze and understand their tactics, techniques, procedures, how they negotiate, how much money they made. And there's been a few in the last 2 or 3 years, Conti being one of the largest, TrickBot, and TrickBot being a precursor to Conti, which came out at the same time, Yan Luong. And there's certain projects on GitHub, like there's a ransom chats repository, which has not all, but a certain number of negotiations from different groups. Jack Cable runs ransomware, which shows like ransomware payments, right? A crowdsourced platform to understand like how much are they actually making. So there's a lot of projects out there to help understand and provide some transparency.
Yeah, and I love this data because this is actually what threat actors are doing.
Yeah,
and we can learn from that, right? The other, so selfishly, what I loved about the Conti leaks was it showed them looking into, bypassing things in UEFI and Intel Management Engine and things like that. I was like, well, that's super interesting. But then we also saw in the Sophos Pacific Rim attacks that we didn't leak what the attackers were doing, but the Sophos was able to get on the systems that they were using to test with and figure out what techniques they were using. This is all great data to go, what are attackers doing? But also, like, what are they thinking about doing next? Which I think is evident. But going back to, like, Black Basta, which was one of the more recent leaks, what I gleaned from that, basically, is threat actors operate by any means necessary.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of paint the picture in our own minds of, well, threat actors are very methodical and they're going to use this technique or that technique. Really, what I get from these logs, Ian, is like whatever I can do to get in is fine. Like there's no real strength.
I don't think they're methodical. I think they're opportunistic.
Yeah, opportunistic.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's less an art. Yeah,
more of just like, oh, if I can get an exploit for that, great.
Yeah,
I'll go use it.
Compromise credentials, brute force, vishing, whatever it takes to get inside the network.
Well, and to counter Bill, given props for artistic websites, they're not terribly sophisticated and complex, especially in these types of attacks where they're, as you said, they're exploiting really, really basic stuff. Anybody can do that.
Well, and there's a lot of people who don't want to be the showy one. They don't want to be the front. They aren't narcissistic enough, I guess, to be the front runners in coming up with something like ransomware.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like, I don't know, Ian, what you observe in terms of like exploitation in 0 days versus exploits that exist, or old vulnerabilities that develop new exploits for. I feel like to attacker, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Right? They want an exploit that, and I feel like I was the same way when I did pen tests. Like, if the company was really locked down, I'm like, oh, I gotta break out something new. I need a newer vulnerability, a newer exploit, a new technique. But that was kind of rare, right? Usually it was like, oh, I know how to exploit that because I've done it before, and that's been known for 5 or 10 years. So I'm gonna go do that. And attackers are doing the same thing. They're like, well, if something exists, I can use it. If not, I've got a couple of O days in my pocket that I bought, traded for, whatever, right?
Yeah. So what I've seen, Ian, curious if you see the same, but like so we're not using O days to get in, right? Like what we're seeing is very commodity type stuff to get in. It's usually novel on the inside, right? And so like, how am I going to bypass the EDR, or or not, right? And so like it's a lot of living off the land. Yeah. It's a lot of those kind of things that to us feels like, oh, well, that's just, that's commodity. But quite honestly, I mean, they're very advanced tactics. We're not just dropping viruses or malware and then just go, right? It's a lot of like thought about how am I going to impact the most systems. And once I get caught, it's fine because like that's at the end anyway, right? Like, so boom, like that's when I drop my encryptor, I'm out anyway. So boom, like, it's fine if I get caught.
What I'm hearing, Bill, is that they have sound processes.
You're right, Jeff. Mr. Jeff. You're right.
Mr. Jeff, man.
Sir. Mr. Jeff, sir.
That's right. Yeah.
No, but one thing which was interesting, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Ian. Go ahead.
But like from the leak, one thing that we saw was that there were a large number of what they called clients that were attacked. There was... I think like deduplicating, right? Some were like test ransomware builds that were created, but there was probably about like 120 or so that were legitimate victims that were actually being targeted. And some were targeted multiple times with different builds like Windows or Linux or ESXi.
Yeah.
Right. So they'd see whichever was successful.
Yep.
But then like you got down further and further, there was only 18 that actually paid a ransom that we can identify, like out of that, like 120 or so.
I mean, let's be clear. If you use ESXi, you deserve it anyway.
Wow. Shots fired.
that aside. Yeah, so it's a much smaller pool of actual victims. And going through the chats, or at least the negotiations, some people are like, yeah, this isn't actually our network, or this is just this is like part of the company, or this is like a non-production server. And somehow they got in. Or some people just said, hey, we had backups. We're not going to pay. And that was it. So
now, sorry, you're asking about backups, because is there a trend on the cloud backups being targeted or not?
I mean, I see Josh. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think from my perspective, I think so. But I don't know, Josh, do you?
There's a reason that I've been pushing immutable backups pretty strongly on people.
But I think that message has been heard, so we may see an uptick in or ransomware. But was it effective? Like, did people actually pay the ransom?
So maybe I'm seeing the opposite. My clients have all had great backups, and data was taken, data was stolen, data was impacted, but we had backups. We can get the systems back up and going. But then this double, this double extortion comes in, where
sure.
So when we start talking about paying, it wasn't about me getting the system up and running again, or it wasn't about me decrypting this. I have been on cases where, hey, I've got I didn't have good backups, or the backups were impacted, Josh. I've seen that too, right? But the cases that I've seen where they pay, it was, you cannot post this. We cannot have this data go public.
So the threat there is like regulatory costs.
But that's different. That's the double extortion ransomware, paying to make sure that the information they extracted, that has nothing to do with their backups.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
So the backup thing, it's definitely cloud backups are targeted, in my opinion. And Ian, please tell me if you see otherwise. But cloud backups are targeted because anything that is attached at any point in time is a target. Okay. And so I've been pushing immutable backups on clients for some time now because they're available on all the major cloud platforms.
For sure. I mean that and Josh, that is the correct answer, right? Like for sure. Right.
But your point about the information must not go public. The funny part about that, and I just want to point this out, is they're depending on the ethics of a ransomware gang.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, you're right.
True.
I mean, there has to be a certain...
Sorry, go ahead.
There has to be a certain code, though, right? Like, there's like a promise, like, we pay you don't leak. And I feel like if that model is broken, then
no one would pay.
And there have been a few examples of that. Change Healthcare is one in recent history, right? They got hit twice, and you could say, oh, it was two separate ransomware groups. It was Alpha V and I think Ransom Hub. But yeah, there have been examples that also I've seen where people got hit twice.
Yeah,
because they didn't patch.
Ian, I want to just go to you in closing. In like lessons learned from these leaks, what advice do you have from folks based on the threat actor behavior that you have observed?
Wow,
I know it's a broad question.
Yeah. Well, I'll just reiterate that we can learn a lot at Flashpoint. Focus on a lot of different things, but threat actor behavior is one that we like to focus on, so to understand how these adversaries operate, and ideally what tactics, techniques, and procedures they're using, and how that might inform future defenses, like we're talking about here with backups or future targeting or vulnerabilities or info stealers. How can we best use these logs to help our clients mitigate risk to the best we can? Because as we spoke about at the beginning, the threat's not stopping, it's continuing, and just becomes, unfortunately, background noise with other types of attacks that we're seeing, like info stealers or compromised credentials or vulnerabilities in patching. So I'm not sure what the exact takeaway is there. Just know your enemy, know how they're getting in, and shore up your defenses as best you can.
Awesome. Ian, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly.
Thank you.
Are we not doing 5 questions?
Oh, yeah, we got time for 5 questions.
What's 5 questions?
You thought you got away, Ian. I'm sorry.
Good call, Jeff.
No, this is going to be
Ian,
good.
you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly?
I've never played 5 questions before, so I don't know.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
This is going to be good because Ian knows things.
I'm here, right?
All right. 3 words to describe yourself.
I don't know. Humble, stalwart. It's a good one, right? And I gotta think of another good one.
Give Paul a minute to look that up in dictionary.com.
And Bill too. Yeah.
I heard someone say gumption today. I like that word. I don't know if that's
a good word.
I'll use it. Yeah.
I don't have to look that one up.
Cool.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Oh, wow.
He was a surface warfare officer. It'd be something like a 18-inch gun or something.
Backstabbing usually is what we specialize in. Or eating our young would be another one.
Mark 69 torpedo.
Yeah.
If you were to write a book about yourself, what would the title be?
You know what? I have like a notes app, which I have like a list of book titles, though I don't know if I have one.
Hell yeah. That's fucking cool.
I know.
Oh,
okay,
that's
Ian,
great.
we can hang out.
Or I also have one of band names.
Excellent.
One of the band names I had was Skinny in All the Wrong Places. So
I love it. That's great. That could be a band name. Or
I love it.
Why not? Maybe it's applicable, maybe not. I don't know.
Wait,
Ian,
hold on a second
your-
before we move on. What do you mean by that? Ian.
Next question. Ian, what is your favorite hacker movie?
Oh, wow. I love hackers.
Yes.
That's right. That's the right answer. There is a right answer to that
And
question.
second is
There's
War
no
Games.
right or wrong.
Second
answer.
is War Games, and third is sneakers.
Okay, at least War Games is second because it should be first.
Yeah.
Wow.
War Games.
I
is
mean,
on
like,
the
me, like
list.
as a kid, like I saw hackers and I thought that was cool. I'm from New York also, so it was like
As
everything
a
perfect.
kid?
What's that?
As a kid?
Yeah.
Well, God, I'm
Yeah, we're old, Josh. We're old, Josh.
A young adult. That makes you feel better.
Did you see it
I
in the
think-
theater? As a
I
kid?
did not. My parents would let me see it
He's
in
even
theater.
younger than you think, Josh.
Okay,
Ian,
but
final question.
no, I have a
Choose
question.
two celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead.
fictional or
Fictional
otherwise.
or otherwise.
Yeah.
Bill's like, crap, I got to say this now. I don't
Oh
remember.
man, two celebrities to be my parents.
Live, dead, fictional or otherwise.
Oh, that's a really weird question.
It is. That's why we ask it.
I don't know. I'll go with putting me on the spot here. Denzel Washington. He'd probably be a pretty cool dad.
one.
His son's
like
done
that.
all right. Mother. I don't know. That's a really tough one because I feel like
You
there's
can
a
have
lot
two
of
dads.
weird answers.
You can have two
That's
dads.
true.
People really struggle with the mom, though, just historically.
Huh.
Yeah.
This is like a psychological experiment.
It's
Well,
like
it's because like nobody can replace your mom. I want my mom as
Right.
my
Yeah,
mom.
it's true.
You know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe Susan Sarandon. I don't know. I guess.
There you go.
See her.
Excellent choice.
Stepmom.
Ian,
That was a
Intriguing.
She was the
Sorry,
actual
Mom.
Yeah.
Ian, thank you so much for appearing
Thank
on
you.
Paul Security Weekly. It's wonderful having
All right. Thank you all.
you. You can't protect what you can't see. Everyone knows that, right? That's why Run Zero gives you total visibility across your internal and external attack surfaces. Worried about unknown and unmanageable devices? They got those covered too. Run Zero also helps you illuminate all types of exposures, even the elusive ones. They go beyond CVEs to tackle the hard stuff, even 0 days. No agents, no authentication, just crazy deep data about your assets and exposures that focus on the risks that actually matter, not an endless sea of CVEs. Try it free. Visit securityweekly.com/run0 to get started. Ransomware, supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. ThreatLocker's zero trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots, just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. Welcome back, everyone, to the security news this week. I'm super charged up about a couple stories in particular. Maybe we should just dive right into some of Paul's rants. What do you say?
I say let's do it. Paul, rant away.
All right.
Get a rant
So
out.
my story number 8. So this is
You'd
a
think if it
Watchtower-
was your number one story, it'd be number one, but we'll start with
Well-
8,
But no.
whatever.
We'll start with
Whatever.
8. I just,
Yeah.
it's nice. It's a good number. 8's a good number. So, Watchtower Labs made a post. It's actually one of 2 of their recent posts, but this one was about the Fortinet FortiSIM pre-authenticated command injection vulnerability. That's CVE 2025-25256. One that you want to pay attention to, especially if you have Fortinet's FortiSIM, because
That's
this
your
was all
story
in the
number
news.
9.
That's my story number 8.
8.
I have a 9 as well, but this is
Oh,
my
it
story number 8.
changed.
Oh, well, refresh.
Refresh.
So this was being exploited all over the place. What I thought was one of the interesting things was Fortinet's comments, coupled with Watchtower's comments. So Fortinet says, practical exploit code for this vulnerability was found in the wild. Okay, that's interesting to unpack in of itself. Watchtower Labs said, we've been told time and time again that attackers only manage to understand a vulnerability when some horrible security researcher releases an analysis. And yet, somehow, we're seeing in the wild exploitation without asking the security community's permission first. Strange. Interesting. So first, what is practical exploit code? It's either exploit code, so I guess non-working exploit code would be like a proof of concept, except a proof of concept may cause a crash, which is some level of working. I guess it goes to your story about terminology.
It's already been through QA. How's that?
Yeah, like
I think this is some like random person's attempt to sound military-esque. I don't think it has that much more meaning behind it.
Right, but I feel like we need to standardize on terminology here. Also,
why start?
Now? It's interesting. Like some vendors, when they say we haven't like seen it in the wild, I feel like when Fortinet says it, Fortinet has a great threat team that operates out of Fortinet, so they're paying attention to what's happening in the threat landscape. So like when they say, yeah, we saw it in the wild or we haven't seen it in the wild, it carries a little more weight than other vendors that maybe don't have like a threat analysis team because it's part of their product line, right? So in any case, I think like the tables have been turned because this is not the first time this has happened where we've seen exploitation of something that isn't like hinging on some security research being published first. Like, because we have that debate. Should I publish the exploit? Should I not? How much should I disclose about the exploit? How much should I weaponize it and publish it? In this case, the threat actors are the ones going, oh, like we got this. We don't need to wait for security researchers. Because like, I feel like there was a time before when security researchers were showcasing all those cool hacks and techniques. Threat actors would then take what we made and they would exploit it and use it. Now it seems like, at least in certain circumstances, it's the opposite. Threat actors are finding those cool things, exploiting them, and we as security researchers are reverse engineering what the threat actors are doing.
I think that's
always showing up the cool stuff.
I think that's always existed, and I bet Mr. Jeff Mann will stay very quiet on this subject.
Could be.
I think
could be
right.
Could be.
But doesn't that also imply that the security researchers are ahead on something else, that they would have continued that trajectory, and just because the threat actors have taken over that means the security researchers are onto something else already?
It could be, Mandy. I agree with you. I think it kind of ties into my other rant and story, right? Where security researchers are presenting stuff that'll be exploited 5 or 10 years from now. We'll see it in the wild, right? What I think attackers have gotten good at is scanning the internet and like pre-scanning the internet. I think it was HD Moore backed me up on this, and one of our other guests, Andy Jakewith, backed me up on this. Was like, look, attackers already know what's on the internet and what the targets are even before the next thing drops, so that when the next thing does drop, they're like, oh, I know where all your Fortinet FortiSIMs are on that port because I've already pre-scanned for it, just waiting for something to drop. Then they're go ahead and they're doing the patch diffing. This is where I think, and I have an article that supports this, where AI is coming into play. You still got to know what you're doing, right? The AI tools are not a supplement for knowledge. They are a tool that allows you to apply your knowledge much more quickly. That's where they are today. I think there are some things that are pretty smart about AI, but I think for security research in general, it's helping me get to the answer more quickly. It's not, I can't just like wake up tomorrow and go, oh, I want to be a security researcher and I'm just going to prompt AI to do my job. You're going to fail miserably. But if you have some knowledge and skills in that area, AI helps you. And that's where I think threat actors are doing the patch diff and coming up with the exploit, much like they have in the past, but doing it much more quickly. And then they've already scanned the targets on the internet and they're going after it. So what does this mean for defenders? It means you got to stay ahead of this curve. You got to patch your shit like yesterday, not next month. Not, oh, I've got a change thing coming up, and that happens, and I get it. But
how is that any different than any other vulnerability that is being leveraged? Whether it began in the researcher community or it began in the criminal community.
It's true. You're right. But it's a great point, Bill. Yeah. From a defender's perspective, it doesn't really matter. You got to move quick.
You got to move quick, right?
But
there is a difference because if I disclose it as security research, it might not be in the wild yet. But if threat actors are using it, then it's in the wild, right? So I feel like with threat actors working with these tools and coming up with something that's
but there's also that concept, and I don't remember what the term is, but there's also that concept like the telephone. The telephone was invented by two people at the exact same time, right? Mm-hmm. And the same thing happens with exploits, right? Like the same thing happens where
No, I agree.
For whatever reason, we find that those flaws that, multiple people find those flaws. And that's why security researchers are so important. And that is why when a security researcher has an O day and, like they find a vulnerability and they start publishing why it is so important because they found it, more than likely somebody else either knew about it or they found it too, right? Like we need to know.
Sometimes security researchers find it and they either can't disclose it because of the situation that they're in at the moment, or they just choose not to. So I think I myself have been in the situation where I found stuff and been like,
me too. I've been.
Do I want to go through disclosure on this thing? Do I want the shitstorm?
I couldn't because of my job and who I worked for.
Or I'm just like, maybe I just hold on to it because I don't feel like dealing with it.
But there's a lot of people bursting to get that
deal.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. There's a lot of people, I think, bursting to get that information out. I think of it like, of course, working with Sky Talks, being in there, I see that a lot, but also just at DEF CON itself, the number of first-time attendees that I had interaction with, that some of them had extremely high-ranking positions and were they started asking, like, who would I go to? How would I turn this in? What do I need to do? I had a number of interactions like that, and that was different.
Mm-hmm. That's always been the case. I mean, attending back when I used to attend security conferences.
Well, wait.
We would have those conversations all the time, right?
Responsible disclosure.
I think you and I were probably standing next to each other, talking to some of our mutual friends, and been like, he or she'd be like,
well,
I found this really cool thing.
They weren't security researchers. These were people who were not security researchers searching out who do we give this information to, because we've now seen and found things that we didn't realize were going to be there, but we aren't familiar with this at all. And I hadn't seen that much of that mentality, like a much broader.
It's a great point. I'm using the term security researcher, Mandy, but you don't have to be a full-time security researcher to observe something that then warrants a disclosure.
Right. One was a lawyer. He's like, I don't know this, but I really feel like this needs to get out there, and I think your community would understand, like, and have the right channels. So that reach I found different.
Mandy, I'm gonna expand on that for a second, if you don't mind. May I? The people. Okay, it used to be 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. If you found a vulnerability or a flaw, you were probably a security researcher. You probably had or been part of the discussion about responsible disclosure versus full disclosure. You'd probably seen other people do these disclosures. And so you had sort of at least a vague idea of where to go, what to do type of stuff, right? So far, so good. Mm-hmm. But now we've got people where some of the vulnerabilities are process-based, see, Jeff? And some of the vulnerabilities are not based around the coolest exploit of the week, but they're based around this information is going to get leaked or breached because they're doing things badly. And so it may not even be a technical person, like Mandy said, like a lawyer. And so they're so far outside the community that they don't even know where to begin. And we as a community may not make it the easiest thing in the world to find out where to begin. You can go to disclose.io, which Casey Ellis set up. You can go to, see if that company has a vulnerability disclosure policy, but it's not really is it a vulnerability? Where does business end and technology begin? And with AI, that line is getting ever more blurred.
The last part was kind of broken up. Your last sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea here is that you've got people.
You've said it twice now.
Okay, that's what your wife says. But you've got people that are not even technical that are going to be reporting flaws. With AI, the line between business and technology and where those vulnerabilities happen is blurrier and blurrier and blurrier as time goes on. Because now you've got people able to access technical data from a prompt.
Yeah. Whether it can find vulnerabilities reliably or not, it still remains a question. But
no, it's not a vulnerability. If information is breached, it's a vulnerability, whether you typed any shell code in or used an AI prompt to get it. it's a breach.
I agree with that, because I think that's exactly what a number of the hearts that were coming forward trying to figure out, like, where do I go with this? It's not because they absolutely know what the exact vulnerability was, but it's because they were seeing the after effects of it.
Well, it's a two-part problem.
But that's what Casey was aiming to do with disclose.io was arm all of us and whoever, us in the security community, outside the security community, with guidelines of how I do disclosure, because it's a very intricate process to do disclosure. They can go sideways at any time, as I've explained. And until you've done it like a few times, it's very daunting and it's very scary.
Yeah. So really good friend of mine who you guys probably all know, but Trent, Trent Lowe, Serbo on, all the socials. He gave a talk at, and I think it was the last, what was it? Maybe it was the last ShmooCon or wherever the last talk was. He talks about all the trials and tribulations he's gone through in trying to disclose vulnerabilities to companies.
He's been in the shit with disclosure quite a few times.
And he and I, quite honestly, for those, I assume everybody knows, he's one of my best friends. I've known him forever, but he has found some significant flaws, and at his core, he's such a good dude. He's on the good side, right? He's always on the good side. Well, yeah. right, fair. But
I've known Trent a long, not as well as you do, but I've known Trent a long time too.
You have known it, but when it comes
shenanigans has always been the strong suit.
But when it comes to when he finds a flaw that could impact the world, he does do it responsibly. He does the right thing, and he has been met with some shit. Right. And
what was the app he found? Now we need to take a tangent, because I love when Trent talked about what was the booking scheduling event something.
Right. Evite. It was unbelievable. It was worse than awesome. He even I got to see, he showed me the deets, right? Like I got to see what he saw, and it was worse than what he publicly announced. Right?
Are they still a company? Is that still a thing?
I have no idea, but
back in the day, it was very popular.
Very
for our younger audience, Evites was an invitation to a party.
Yeah, it's still
basically
out there.
An event.
Well,
I feel like it was replaced by Facebook events. A lot of people, I think, now use
probably Eventbrite is probably where I would say that, or Facebook or whatever. But
was it more for
replaced by a
personal?
lot of other? But Evites was a thing where it was like back in the day when you used to actually get something printed on a physical piece of paper and mail it an invitation to people. And then at some juncture, we realized we had this awesome thing called the internet, and we could do that via a website. And everyone was using Evites. You'd have a party on a Saturday night with just your friends, and you would send an Evite out for that because you're like, wow, this is really cool technology. And Trent was like, blew that shit up. He was like, this is not, no security, no integrity, nothing.
Wait.
The whole
do you know what kids do nowadays? They send Gcal invites.
They send
what?
They send Google Calendar invites for sex, parties, get-togethers, study sessions.
Get-togethers.
Wow. Yeah. Is that all like, one thing? Or are those different things?
Let me open up my Google Calendar. They send.
Well, hopefully they don't do it on the school.
So speaking of sex calendar, whatever.
Wow,
Josh.
We got off on a tangent, but
I gotta say, I want to go back to HD more and DEF CON. How many talks did? I know. I'm sorry. That was a poor transition. I get it.
Yeah, because I have another article about disclosure, but go ahead.
But how many talks did that guy give at DEF CON this year? Like every time I'd turn it up, like I'd see that he gave another talk, and like I just gotta say, like HD, like man, I watched every one of your talks. They look great. I'm curious how everybody's DEF CON experience was, but Paul, I think you're going to take it a different direction.
Yeah, so there was trying to find it now. I had a story about the Elastic in their EDR. My story number 11.
Yeah.
The bleeping computer. So I actually read the original research before I read the bleeping computer article. But the Bleeping Computer article summarized both the researchers and Elastic's response to it. So the headline reads, Elastic has rejected claims of a 0-day remote code execution flaw in their Defender EDR product. So there was a security research company that I'd never heard of before that posted on Reddit, hey, we made this 0-day, finding in Elastic's EDR product, which kind of near and dear to my heart because they were part of, it was Endgame. Endgame was one of the sponsors on this show that actually was so awesome that they supported us so much that it allowed me to kind of go off on my own, right? Because it was like at that juncture, the team at Endgame, phenomenal. Sponsor for years. And long story short, Elastic acquired Endgame. A bunch of the Endgame people worked there, and then I lost track. I don't know who, if any of those original people are still there. And that's probably Defender EDR. I would venture to guess, someone correct me if I'm wrong, is probably the Endgame product. And Endgame made an awesome EDR, by the way, because they sponsored our show and like scrutinized like your product has to really work if you're gonna would ask them a lot of hard questions. So anyway, now fast forward this person's research. He's like, there's a 0-day, there's an exploit in here, and then like added little more details as time went on. Now some of my detectors went off when I was reading the research. Right. And I'm not discounting. So like at the end of the day, I'm not taking sides. I don't know who's got what. But if you read the research article, the disclosure timeline's kind of weird. And those of you that know me well know I'm a really big fan of the disclosure timeline. I feel it's important. I feel it has to be there in some capacity at least, because it keeps everyone honest, right? If we all publish a disclosure timeline, then that means that all the vendors know that as soon as they get a disclosure, that's going to be part of a timeline. It's going to be public. And the security researchers also know that, which means both parties have to do their due diligence, knowing that their correspondence during disclosure at some point will be made public on a timeline. I think it keeps everyone in line. It's a great thing for the community. But when I read their disclosure timeline, they were like, oh, we went to HackerOne, we went to this other place. I'm like, did you go to Elastic directly? Like nothing in their disclosure timeline shows them going to Elastic directly. It shows them going through third parties. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but
you're illustrating, Paul, that what we were talking about a few minutes ago about this and what Mandy was bringing up with people wanting to know how to disclose responsibly, but not knowing how to do it. Even people within the vulnerability research community don't necessarily, I don't know why they didn't do it, why they didn't go to Elastic. I'm going to assume that they just didn't know or they didn't think about it, because there are no hard and fast guidelines despite lots of people's efforts.
Right.
So we don't know within the community. How do we get it out to the people outside the community?
Sometimes it can be scary going directly to the vendor, right?
Sure.
You're worried about getting sued, quite frankly, right? And so you may go to third parties because you don't want to get sued. But that aside, if you look at the disclosure, what in the correspondence, so if you look at Elastic's official statements and the researchers' official statements, what basically I surmise is happening is that the researchers did not provide enough evidence and proof of concept and details in order for Elastic to recreate the issue and validate it. And this is a very common thing in vulnerability disclosure. And the reason with the one point of facts that I can point to in that is when we interviewed Jared DeMont from Microsoft, who works in MSRC. And Microsoft and Jared were very gracious in doing an interview, right? Obviously, interviewing people from Microsoft involves public relations and all that stuff. And I'm like, Jared, I don't want to get you in trouble, but I'm going to ask you these questions. And I was like, Jared, so like, why does Microsoft reject vulnerability disclosures? I'm like, you guys probably get the most vulnerability disclosures out of any company. Like, you probably have the most lines of code, right? Arguably out of any company on the planet. Therefore, as a result of that, you get the most vulnerability disclosures. So this is a great point to ask, like, what can we do better as researchers when we're disclosing? And he said, look, you just got to give us as much details as possible. And he's like, sometimes we reject stuff and then they come back with more evidence and we accept it, or they don't. And then they complain that, oh, we didn't accept your disclosure. He's like, yeah, but we couldn't validate it. Right. So I get both sides. Like I've worked on both sides of this.
Is the rejection because of the potential for a bug bounty, Paul?
No, I don't get that from larger companies, Jeff. I don't think they're like, oh, we can save some money by not paying out. Yeah, like Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, they've already budgeted out for their bug bounty. And even if they pay out bug bounties, they know it's going to cost them less than trying to do that.
And quite honestly, I think it's a marketing event when they say we have paid out over $100,000 in bug bounties, right? I think
right.
Yeah.
So you go back to the Microsoft example. What Jared said was, provide as much detail as you can, even if you think it's irrelevant, even if you like go over the top. He's like, do a video, give like a whole bunch of documentation, read all of Microsoft's documentation and follow that to the letter. And I think that's what happened here between these researchers in Elastic.
I think it's simpler than that, Paul.
I can't reproduce it. And they were kind of unwilling to go the extra mile and go, here's exactly how you do it. Because there's no harm in the vendor should have all the information. Give the vendors all the information. Look, when we do a disclosure at my day job at Eclipsium, I love the fact that, and I didn't set this precedent, this was there when I started. If the vendor asked like, hey, can we like see your blog post before you publish it and give you feedback? We're like, yeah, you can. And we do, John. I mean, you're shaking your head no. Like a lot of people wouldn't do that.
Well,
we're like, yeah.
You'll allow them to give feedback, but you don't allow them to choose the direction of the blog article.
No. We don't allow them to edit it. We give it to them in a PDF, and then they come back and like reason they're like, well, make this clarification because we made this fix available.
Oh, and that's fine.
And we're like, yeah, absolutely, we'll update. And they're like, what does your attack demo video look like? We're like, you can have that. Like, we disclosed the vulnerability to you. Why wouldn't we share everything we have on this vulnerability? Like, you want our exploit code? Sure. You want our video on how it works? Sure. This is what we're going to publish. It's good. And I tell you what, in my experience, the vendors are like, yeah, it's great. It's perfect. And so what I think happened here with Elastic is there was kind of like a lack of sharing there. Not enough information was sent to Elastic.
See,
I want to hear Bill's theory.
Yeah, Bill, what's your theory?
Well, so I mean, I'm just looking at the Ashes cybersecurity.com, and it
Thank
looks
you.
like
That's what it was. Ashes cybersecurity.com.
And
I don't want to knock them because I've never heard of them before.
Same disclosure, never heard of them before. Just on their website, just looking at this looks like a marketing, like they wanted to be in the news, right? Like that's what
I get that. I get that sense too, Bill. Mm-hmm. I do. I hesitated to say that because I don't.
Same.
I want to slander. Like I don't want to slander anyone, but I did kind of get that sense, right? And also, I think Elastic is a great company. By the way, so they make a ton of open source and freely available products. Right? Like they're not like poo poo in the community,
right?
They're all in on the community.
Earlier, and I don't remember who said it. Josh, it might have been when you are like, hey, sometimes it's hard going to the vendor. It's not Elastic. They feel like a very open, like
they do.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
So, Bill, I saw their response, and look, I've looked at a lot of vendors' responses to disclosure, not just ones that I've been involved with personally, but ones that other people have done the past 20 years of doing this show. And I looked at Elastic's response, and I'm like, I don't see any shade here.
Yeah.
Because if I did, I would be the first one to call them out.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And you've heard me on this show in the past 20 years calling vendors out for like, even if I don't have evidence, I'm like, just in their communications, sounds like they're trying to hide something or brush it under the rug.
For sure.
I didn't get that from Elastic. I got Elastic going, look, the way I read it, Elastic was like, we just couldn't validate it. So therefore we don't believe it exists. And I also believe that if someone came along, whether it's Ashes, security researchers or someone else, and said, no, I really think this is real, Elastic would respond to that. That's the sense I get from that team.
Yeah.
So, but again, I don't necessarily want to take sides. That's just, I guess in our experience, we're going to call it like we see it, right? That's what we're seeing now. So who knows what's going to happen? But your company runs on Google Workspace. but it's an afterthought for most security tools. Material Security is the first and only platform purpose-built to protect Google Workspace, securing email, data, and user accounts from advanced threats. From blocking sophisticated phishing attacks in Gmail to preventing unauthorized app usage and fixing risky file sharing in G Drive, Material continuously protects your data. Don't settle for second best. Protect Google Workspace with Material Security. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Material Security. Security Weekly and Cyber Risk TV are headed back to one of the biggest identity security events of the year, Octane 2025, put on by Okta. Live September 24th through the 26th, the vibrant city of Las Vegas, Octane 2025 brings together the best minds in identity, security, and technology innovation. And this year, we're turning up the volume. Security Weekly will be on site in full force with Mandy Logan and Adrian Sanabria leading the charge. Get ready for live-streamed executive interviews, exclusive on-site editorial coverage from SC Media, and brand new this year, a live-streamed episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. It's your chance to engage with identity leaders, dive into the future of AI security, and hang out with your favorite Security Weekly hosts. And here's the best part. Security Weekly listeners get an exclusive discount. Just head to securityweekly.com/Octane to register and use the promo code OKTNSCMA25 to get your conference pass for $200.
So can we segue to my story number 8?
Jeff's story number 8.
Which is developers knowingly push vulnerable code despite growing breach risk.
We've been saying this for freaking years, dude.
Well, hold on. Raise your hand if you're guilty of this. I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it.
Yeah. Look, here's the deal. Do we tell developers to turn out secure code? Has anybody here ever instructed a development team to turn out secure code? Or have...
Yes.
Yes? Cool. And which was more important in your company? To turn out secure code or to get that code out by Thursday, damn it?
Sure.
For sure. Yeah.
But this is a calculated risk. And look, I'm not necessarily defending pushing out vulnerable code. However, it's a risk decision.
Yes.
And every situation is unique because there's different levels of vulnerable code.
Yeah.
Right. The article didn't state that it was highly exploitable, extremely impactful vulnerable code. It just says vulnerable code. There's vulnerable code in every piece of software that you use today. Now, how reachable that is, how long that vulnerability will live are variables. And so absolutely, developers know I didn't fix all the vulnerabilities, but I got to push a release. And we're going to work on that vulnerability in the next release. And guess what? It's a risk-based decision to go likelihood, probability of one, that being exploited, and two, that having some kind of impact, what the impact is of that vulnerability is low. So you know what? We're going to push the code.
But the article, the sense I got from the article published by Checkmarks was, sort of pointing fingers at devs. Why would you do this? I don't think it's devs' fault. I think that's sort of what Josh might be getting at is they're under a tremendous amount of pressure to get code out that works, and it's not on them to make sure it's secure. And unfortunately, there are too few. How do you solve the problem? Regulatory requirement. PCI has required people to put out secure payment applications since the very beginning. Still a struggle, but better 20 years into it than it was 20 years ago.
But also, I think if we said we're never going to push a release until we remediate all the vulnerabilities, we'd never have any software that was pushed to production.
Yeah,
well, that's true.
I guess I'm siding with developers on this one, man.
Do you remember in the very beginning of the public internet, the World Wide Web, it was very common practice for people to push out web applications, websites, and they would just call it beta. and they wanted everybody to find the bugs and vulnerabilities. That was their QA. Was just
back in the
it.
day, though, I don't even think they knew that there were vulnerabilities or what a vulnerability was. Because one of the things that got me into this field is when I was in college and I had to take a Microsoft Office suite class, and I was so bored. Until one day my instructor said, if you go to the World Wide, so this is in the 90s, right? He's like, hey, if you go to the World Wide Web and you start messing with like the URL and the URL bar, you can like get some interesting things to happen. I'm like, whoa, that's hacking. I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Right. But I don't think back in the day people knew, right? It was CGI applications that were just running willy nilly back in the day, and people didn't really know. Now we have a lot more tooling and practices and techniques to find the vulnerability. We know about a good number of, maybe not all of them, but we know when we're pushing vulnerable code, and it's up to, I guess I'm going to side with developers on this, and this is the side I'm going to take, because we know as a development shop that we're going to push a release that has vulnerabilities, and we're going to accept that risk, right? Because at some point we have to push a release, and if we know that we've got X number of vulnerabilities, we're still going to push that release. We're going to look at the impact. We're going to look at the severity of those vulnerabilities, but we're still going to push that release because any given release is not free of bugs and or vulnerabilities. What you're aiming for is, one, evaluating and accepting risk and what that threshold is, and you have to agree upon that in your team and your organization.
That's where it is, Paul.
And two, you've got, hopefully, the better teams have a process for going, yeah, that release had that vulnerability, but you know what? The next release is going out tomorrow, and it's going to squash that vulnerability. And guess what? There's an automated process that runs and finds new vulnerabilities, and that's going to be squashed in 24 hours. So it's that iterative process in your SDLC.
So I disagree with everything you just said, except for the point where you just said, like, so there is a, like, an acceptable risk. Like, so we have discussed this, and we have decided that this is our risk appetite, right?
Right.
And that these bugs or whatever they are.
Well, either one. Bug. We're going to accept the risk of this bug or this vulnerability. Both present risk in different
there
is
ways. A mitigating, like there's a what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for?
Compensating control. Perhaps there's a compensating control which helps us accept the risk.
Send it.
Right. Send it.
Here's the problem.
What did you disagree with?
Wait. Here's the problem.
Else.
Calculate.
What was everything else?
You said the word
siding with the developers.
That's siding with the developers you disagree with.
He just hates developers.
Yeah.
So
what you got? But yeah, see, I walked the walk. I was a developer way back in the day, but then I was a developer of the app that we use, PPWorks, for a while, and I was like, oh, like I get it. I get it now.
But I mean, like, also, like, and Josh, I know that you want to get in there, but I mean, like, if you knew about an egregious, like, vulnerability, not a bug, but this is a SQL injection,
like unauthenticated command injection vulnerability, dude, I would not push that release because I'm not accepting that risk.
That's right.
Now, someone, if I work in a larger organization, perhaps, and someone says, well, you have to push this release regardless. I'm like, okay, fine, get that in writing.
Put it in
but
writing,
I
and you
do
got
not want to push this release with that unauthenticated command injection vulnerability.
Yep.
But here's the problem. You know what an unauthenticated command injection vulnerability does and the risk that it poses. If I ask you to calculate that release, if I ask you to calculate that risk, you have the knowledge to do so. How many developers have the knowledge to calculate the risk of a specific vulnerability? This is
we hope there's someone. There's someone on the team that can do that job.
That shouldn't be their responsibility. I mean, that's why you have an SDLC and you have, supposedly a security team that's involved.
You have QA.
You have QA.
QA doesn't know what
most of the time they're trying to break the app from functionality.
Sure, but you have site reliability engineers. You've got
QA does not know what risks or what problem or what level of problem. If you have most software development shops or smaller shops, they do not have security people
or QA.
What's that?
Or sometimes QA. My QA was, hey, just push it in production, and when the users report a bug, we'll fix it. And
it's the worst QA. But yes, sometimes they don't even have QA.
Sometimes they have QA. Yeah.
That's the world of the beta.
Sometimes QA is just whatever automated tools you have in your build pipeline.
I get it. My point is, we're telling people, hey, turn software out fast. Get software out fast. Cool. Okay. We're telling them, hey, your code should be secure. So we do static code analysis and secure code, whatever the hell it is, SCA, and composition analysis. Sorry.
Composition analysis. We do dynamic analysis. Hopefully, we have all those, all the things that the companies that make VPN and firewall appliances don't do.
Valid. And the point is that we turn out software without an understanding of that calculation of risk. We assume that the software is going to be okay, and yet it's often not.
Right.
And
how many developers does any of you know that are not familiar with the OWASP top 10?
Most of them don't know it.
Why?
It varies greatly.
Yeah.
Because you're focused on writing code. I still think, I know we talked about this years ago, but developers come out of school with the skill set of how to build software, not how to build secure software. Maybe some know how to build more resilient software.
Oh, that's a good one.
And that could speak to secure software, but there's still that resiliency you're taught in school is to catch every exception to make sure it doesn't crash, not necessarily how to not introduce a security bug into how to not build your point SQL injection, which is a totally solvable problem, by the way. We still introduce it. Well, a lot less lately, but
sorry. I have taught developer classes to teach them what security is. And Tanya Janka, who she hacks Circle, has done a lot of that as well. And the answer is almost universally, they go, what's this thing called the CIA triad? What types of are there vulnerabilities that are worse than others? Yes. Okay. So I make sure that I don't write things that like I can fix. I do input sanitization and they look like, aren't I a good boy? And you want to give them a cookie, like a Trevor cookie or something. And because to them, they are doing the best that they can do. Developers are not security professionals. They are the equivalent of Trevor, who, by the way, if you don't know, is Mandy's puppy, who's adorable.
And magnificently
and
intelligent.
Vice versa.
Also a
security
cockroach.
People are not developers, right? So, I mean, like, that is equally as important, right?
We are teaching, and I think this is useful, we're teaching more code to security people in school. And I think that's wonderful and useful and good.
Both ways, actually, I think.
Yeah. But, we require these days most security people to have some at least vague familiarity with writing code. Okay?
Yeah, but that's different from being a software developer.
Agreed.
Sure.
So let me give an example of my career. Like, I was a software developer like in the 90s, and I was like, well, I don't want to do that as a career. I'm like, but I still like writing code. I still like developing software. And then you fast forward to PBWorks, right? Our podcast app. And I got back in being a software developer. I was like, wow, this is completely different from me writing some kind of Python or C or Bash script for myself to accomplish a task. Now I'm writing an application that I have users that are using it in a business function to solve problems and be more productive and reporting bugs. And I'm like, that's totally different from when, Bill, you and I write code for an ESP32 project. We can write code. Sure. Great.
Now you start writing for edge cases and exception handling.
Exception handling was huge. I was like, wow, I never put this much exception handling into my own scripts that I wrote because I was the only user.
Right.
So I knew don't do that. Don't do that. Right.
My script's exception handling is print exception. Right.
Got it. Okay. But when I got in the application, I was like, wow, I need to trap shit that I would never think of. Right. And that's why I kind of joke, I'd push to production and see what problems they found. I'm like, oh, I didn't put an exception handling there. I'm like, wow, it's completely different.
Have I told you my QA joke and exception handling joke?
No.
I love this. So a developer builds a bar. He walks in, he goes to the bartender, give me 1 beer, give me 5 beers, give me 9 gazillion beers, tries to do an input overflow. Give me -1 beers. Give me 0 beers. It passes like it. It's fantastic. He goes, "This is awesome," and he walks out. Says, "QA, your turn." QA walks in, says, "Can I have a glass of water?" And the bar explodes.
That's good. That's
So true.
Yeah.
So PCI minute. PCI is required annual developer training that's focused on security. PCI requires awareness and scrutiny based on the OWASP top 10.
Are we still drinking on PCI? Is that still a thing?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Do we need a reason to drink?
I need to go get
Yes.
up.
Maybe.
PCI also.
Yeah, I
You were drinking some bourbon. You had some brown liquor in your glass.
I've
Go
got
refill it.
rye.
Well, it's
Yeah.
empty.
Just
now.
talking about
Yeah.
PCI. It's a good time.
PCI requires security testing, code review,
Wait, he said PCI again.
and with version 4, they're now requiring an SBOM and focus on not only this is all web application based, but not only server side, but also the browser side, the consumer side. What
side.
more can be done? Client side. Thank you. What more can be done, and why isn't this done everywhere else?
Okay, so
Josh,
Wow, we're on
No, this is a really good question.
This
So,
is
okay,
the
so first off,
AppSec 20 minutes here on Ball Security Weekly.
oh, sorry. So okay, so do me a favor.
We have like a whole show on this too.
Jeff, roll through those again. It was the SBOM.
SBOM, security testing. Now, well, I omitted it, but I will add, you have to have a web application firewall in place. For the developers, they have to do code review. Security is supposed to be built into every step of the development process. They have to do annual secure coding training. That's primarily based on OWASP top 10. What else could be done, and why isn't this done in other environments?
Me. So we've talked about this a lot in the past, but not recently. So we used to cover this a lot on the shows. And so I think that developer training is one thing that you do. I think there needs to be something in the IDE that developers use to do some kind of linting, that's spotting bugs as they're coding, right? Then should be something when you commit that code that's doing static analysis of the code on top of that. Then you should be automatically building your software, doing some level of automated dynamic analysis. There should be also, actually before that, I really like unit tests as a measure to test security of different things, in addition to dynamic analysis. In addition to the other step is what Josh mentioned before, SCA, software composition analysis. Am I incorporating libraries that already have known vulnerabilities? I like the concept of a WAF as well to prevent against things. I mean, you can talk about the efficacy of a WAF. If it
That's still good.
even if it stops 1 or 2 attacks, it's still 1 or 2 attacks that you're stopping. And then I also believe you need to have a third-party independent test of your application every once in a while to flesh out vulnerabilities. And
yeah, but you're using the word "should" a lot, Paul. And PCI
I say
learned
should
this
because
lesson.
most people don't. Right.
Well, yeah, PCI learned this lesson a long time ago. Should means, we don't have to do it. It's optional.
Right. These are things, if you want a secure application, these are things you must do. I feel like the formula is there, but not every development shop, every development group within an organization will follow these practices, right? Because it's hard. And I experienced that. It's based on resources. It's based on budget.
It's not
time.
hard. Well, you said the magic word, budget. It costs money.
Yeah, right.
So they're only going to do the
Yeah.
bare minimum, which is from a
And money
business
is time,
perspective.
Dude, I live that every day of my day job. I live that where like we've got a whole bunch of developers, amazing, smart, awesome developers. Where should they focus, by the way? Right? That's the business decisions that need to happen. As to where they focus those efforts. Should they be fixing bugs? Should they be squashing vulnerabilities? Should they be implementing new features? Which new features should they implement? And then the big one is, what architectural changes and features should they be implementing that have very little impact on the bottom line? It's not a sales feature, it's a back end feature, right? And I feel like the kind of plumbing and back end features fall in the same thing as security. Like, hey, we're going to add this stuff, but it's not going to, like, users aren't going to have any new shiny thing that's going to make them want to buy the product, right? And those are the hard things to do as a business. And the way to justify that, the way to justify this whole SDLC process that I just outlined is it will make us give us the ability to put out more secure, reliable code and develop features more quickly. So I want to make this back-end change. I want to make this change that's going to help security. That means we can crank out more features in the future, but we may need to take a time out. I mean, it's funny. Matt Alderman and I lived this. Matt was the business guy. I was the developer. We'd have these very frank conversations. And I'm like, you're not going to get any new features in the next 2 weeks because I have to convert from Python 2 to Python 3. And I'm like, the sooner we do that, the better off we are implementing new features. Because if I implement new features in Python 2, it's just going to increase our technical debt when we decide to jump to Python 3. So you have to be able to make those business cases. And I'm not saying every developer needs to make those business cases. Project managers, site reliability engineers, all the roles within development team need that capability to make those product managers, right? Is a big one, to have to make those justifications. Like, look, I know customers are asking for this, and I can deliver more on those type of features if we take a 2-week sprint and we clean up our back end. And those are the realities of software development. They're very complex. It's not a cut and dry thing of either I have a secure development process or I don't. There's so many intricacies to this process.
Wait, didn't this start about why stuff was not disclosed to Elastic? Where did we start?
I think so. Thanks, Mandy. I want to go to my story. I want to go to my story number 9. My story number 9 is that Russian FSB spies are exploiting a 7-year-old Cisco bug. So I think these threat actor behaviors that I observed in this article are why we're losing the war or the battle, however you want to term it. So take these 3 points that I pulled from the article. The article says the threat actors were targeting outdated networking gear that accepts legacy unencrypted protocols like Cisco Smart Install and SNMP. They've also deployed custom malware for some Cisco devices, such as 2015's sinful NOC router implant. We'll come back to that. They also said there is a super old, this is a direct quote from the article, and this was a register article. This was a register article. There's a super old critical bug in Cisco Smart Install feature of Cisco iOS and iOS XE, tracked as 2018 0171, which Cisco fixed in March of 2018. So there's some basic security practices that could wipe out those 3 things, right? One, getting rid of legacy unencrypted protocols, arming ourselves with detection and prevention of 10-year-old hacking techniques. You had 10 years to combat that technique, and patching our systems for things like vulnerabilities that were 7 years old from 2018. So I think that vulnerabilities and attacker techniques are implemented on a timeline that can be pretty random. Sometimes it's 10 years after that black hat talk that we see in the wild things. Don't wait until something is actively exploited in the wild to then decide, oh, I need to defend against that, because it's too late, right? And here's the real mind bender. And many of us will remember this. And we were super close to this when we first started the podcast in 2005, when Mike Lynn broke open the Cisco iOS hacking landscape. There was others. I can't remember his name, but there was others that were doing this too. And the implants were seen in the... So you got 2005, which is very controversial.
Yeah.
So just for the young folks out there, we're going to take you back to 2005. And the black hat slides.
That was my first black hat. That was my...
Right?
Yeah, that was my first.
And Bill, if you remember, how did you consume those black hat slides?
They were in a book.
In a book.
Yeah.
In a book. But before the conference, Cisco issued a cease and desist to Mike Lynn. And there were many people, those of us who, like, we know people who were physically sitting there before Black Hat, ripping out pages from the book because there was a cease and desist.
Unbelievable.
unbelievable story. You should go read about it. I don't know what happened to Mike Lynn. I'm going to catch up with. I really want to see like where in the world today is Mike Lynn, but we were going to have him on the show.
But Paul,
but then hold on, I'm not done. Then implants were seen in the wild in 2015, right, when we had some of those vulnerabilities, and now we still observe attackers today exploiting those vulnerabilities. So we're going off of a 20-year-old black hat talk.
Wow.
And then some exploits that were 10 years after that. And then 10 years after that, we're still seeing attackers use this successfully in the wild. It's crazy to me to think about the progression from I think we can hack this thing to I've proven how to hack this thing to I've perfected how to hack this thing to threat actors are using it in the wild. If you look at all these different attacks on all these different platforms over time, they all go through this progression in slightly different time frames, which is amazing to me.
But so Paul, you're touching on a lot of different things, and I'll try to be brief. There is a theme, one of the themes other than AI at Black Hat was, and I had a chance to meet with the CEO of Qualys and a senior executive at Rapid7 and a founder of Rapid7. I mean, of Tenable. All of those companies
which founder of Tenable? It's either Ron. Oh, it's Ron. Okay.
Ron, at a cigar event. All of them, and throw in HD Moore and what he's trying to do with his company.
Sure.
It all revolves around this whole vulnerability management problem. Organizations are fatigued. They're weary of chasing all the vulnerabilities. And I've seen many reports on, how few vulnerabilities are actually used in exploitation. There's been a spate of breaches in the last couple of weeks that haven't been involved, at least initially, with vulnerabilities at all. It's all social engineering stuff. Companies want to prioritize. Prioritization was a term a couple of years ago. It's been kind of rebranded. I forget which one of my stories talks about it, but so vulnerabilities are out there because they haven't been exploited, because there's a lot of companies out there saying, well, yeah, let's prioritize. Let's only fix the vulnerabilities that you have to because they've been seen in the wild. And that's why we have the CISA-KEV and so on and so forth. It's a very complicated, complex issue that revolves around people. I think the bottom line is the economics of it. They only want to have to fix what they have to fix, that they need to fix. And maybe that's the right way to think about it. Maybe that's the wrong way to think about it.
I think it's the wrong way. It's the wrong way to think about it. You need to be.
You need to patch everything. You need to be up to date. You need to keep discovering the vulnerabilities. But that's hard, and that takes time.
I'm not saying it's easy. It's hard, but I think we can be smarter about it. In that,
how? I'm putting you on the spot. How can we be smarter about it?
We need to make sure we're not. And the more technical debt that you incur, the harder it is to get to the latest version to remediate all those vulnerabilities. So if we take the approach of breaking it down into smaller chunks and not waiting to apply a patch. And so like in this example, in my story number 9, we had 7 years to patch this vulnerability. Mm-hmm. That's a long time.
By the way, what do you know offhand what was the CVS score for this vulnerability?
That's a good question. But that doesn't, in my example, Jeff, that doesn't matter. What I'm saying is the longer you wait,
7 years, any level should have been fixed. I agree with you.
Yeah. The harder it is to apply those fixes, the more technical debt you incur, the more problems that are just going to arise, right? So if we keep up with it and we apply those patches, and so, there's no vulnerability, there's a vulnerability, but it's not being exploited in the wild, but I can patch it in my next cycle or the next 3 cycles. In the next year, I can get to the latest version. It's not 7 years, it's a year. If we are constantly iterating in this, I got to keep up, when something is exploited and does present an imminent threat, I'm like, oh, I already did that.
In
Or
this instance,
I'm on like almost the most recent version. It's pretty easy to jump to the latest version, and therefore I do that. It's hard to quantify like exactly what that means. Like I liken it to if you've got Linux systems, for example, and like I've done this with some of my laptops, and I haven't used one of my laptops in a couple of months or whatever. And I'm like, then I go to it and I'm like, oh my God, the amount of patching I have to do based on the data that's on there. I'm like, you know what?
You might as well just not turn it on.
Scratch. Yeah. Either you don't turn it on or you just rebuild it from scratch at that point.
Yeah.
Because I incurred too much technical debt.
But
and
Paul,
yes, could I deal with that? But it's hard.
But Paul,
right? Because every problem you have in each one of those upgrades, you have to deal with like all at once. So like if I'm 3 months behind on batches and I know that the problems I've encountered in the past 3 months, I'm going to have to encounter and remediate on that system. That's going to take a lot of time. Whereas if I had kept up with it, I can deal with that one problem. Even if I have 1,000 systems, I'm like, all right, I have that one problem. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to apply the fix. I'm going to get to the next version, right? But if you've got a dozen issues that you need to work through, it's a lot more work, right?
So I have a question, Paul. Based on this article, was this 7-year-old vulnerability technical debt that the vulnerability was passed on version to version, or was it exploited on systems that were 7 years old that were way behind in patching and versions?
It's tough to know, Jeff, exactly. So,
because there's a business argument for it wasn't a problem for 7 years. So there's a business case to be made for, well, yeah, I mean, from a risk perspective, this hasn't been an issue. So maybe we can move on to other things.
There's operational risk.
I mean, there hasn't been a shortage of other critical vulnerabilities and a million other things in this 7 years where this particular one pops up. So, I can play devil's advocate and see a defense or at least a rationale for why this hasn't been patched in certain cases by certain companies, but because it wasn't an issue. And that's what the vulnerability prioritization movement is telling you.
But I'd also argue that the operational risk multiplies the longer you wait.
Well, and that's the essence of
your security risk and your
your
operational risk.
Yep.
So now I'm sitting here. I haven't updated this thing in 7 years. Well, crap. Now my operational risk is a lot more than let's go back 7 years ago. If I applied this one fix, yes, there's operational risk to that, but it's much higher now because it's 7 years later. And if I want to go to the latest version, now I got 7 years of catching up.
Right. And the chances of that being impactful to your business are much greater.
Yep.
Much greater.
Much greater.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one example.
I like the DevOps approach to IT infrastructure management, to break things up into smaller chunks, to not wait long periods of time before you do something. Break it up into smaller chunks. Do it as you go. That's like a development thing, right? I want to know which libraries, which code I need to update this week, rather than waiting 3 months or 3 years before I address those issues. I'm breaking stuff up into smaller chunks, which means my risk and also my level of effort is greatly reduced because I've just got this one thing to worry about. The longer I wait, the more things that can go wrong, basically.
Yeah, but that's I don't disagree with you philosophically, Paul, but if everybody was doing that, we wouldn't really need SBOMs, would we?
No, I think we'd still need SBOMs to know where I'm at any given time. I think we don't need vulnerability management, more importantly. Well, I don't need vulnerability management to tell me what's out of date. I know what's out of date because I'm checking it against what the latest version is, and I know I'm behind, and I'm just going to go to the latest version. Again, that's not it. It's a pipe dream. It's not always a reality in a lot of organizations, especially when we talk about things. What's called out my story number 9, Cisco iOS XE. That's like huge ISP level stuff. Bill, you worked for an ISP.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for a large university that had similar kinds of gear. And we also helped the large ISP that provided stuff to us. Dude, upgrades are
I worked for a telecom
world in that environment. Yeah, dude,
it was
a
an
different
issue.
world in that environment, and that's what I think they're targeting in this article. But I think it's a call to those ISPs and large organizations that are running this huge enterprise gear and being like, "Yeah, I get it. Like you got it working and you don't want to touch it, but there's gonna come a day where you're gonna be screwed by that approach of just getting it working and leaving it."
I completely
Bill,
agree.
You know, right? At an ISP, how many times did you get it working and leave it? I did the
all
same
of
thing
them.
in the university.
Like every time.
All the time.
All the time.
Do you? And I'd be like, well, there's vulnerabilities in this. We need to upgrade. And they're like, you realize we've got 500 acres of campus, 5,000 plus, networking devices that all run a school of 30 to 100,000 students that pay an exorbitant amount of money to be here. What you tell me is you want to take this operational risk to remediate this vulnerability that may or may not be impactful in some. I get
well,
it.
I think I've told you this
sides.
before on this podcast, but I wasn't even able to like analyze the 911 system, right? Like I wasn't even able to look. They were so worried that, well, because every second that the 911 system is unavailable, there are significant fines based upon regions, right? So I wasn't even able to check it for vulnerabilities, right? So don't even look,
right?
Don't even scan it. Like, and from a security standpoint, I'm like, well, if it is so important, like if it is so important that you don't want me to look, don't you want me to look? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like if it's that important, let me look.
But they're basically just making a gamble.
Yeah.
Right. They're making a gamble between security risk and operational risk. They're like, you know what?
But that's the essence of
operational
risk
is too high. So we're going to take the security risk and hope that there's no security.
We know
unless you're in my story number 8, where Russian FSB is in your system.
Well,
and
but
then
Paul,
you're like, shit, I made the wrong decision.
Again, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I mean, we're talking about being proactive versus reactive. And this is one vulnerability that was exploited at 7 years old. It's probably one of 1,000, if not 10,000 vulnerabilities that are out there that it hasn't happened yet. And there's no practical way to address all of them unless you completely
you just get new
revamp your attitude and your focus on vulnerability management.
But that's what happened. And Bill can attest to this, right? You're like, oh, a lot of vulnerabilities in this gear. And you're like, well, that gear is going to be replaced in the next 6 months. Right. And 6 months is really like a year.
Oh.
And it finally does get replaced,
longer.
but the older gear hangs around. Yeah. And then you're like, shit, someone popped the older gear. Like, that's still kind of problematic.
The problem is the scale of cost, right? And so, like, when you start saying 6 months or a year, we're really talking about 3 or 4 years. And like, well, I want that replaced right now. Like, Bill, do you understand that this piece of equipment costs $600,000 and there's 40 of them?
And I was going to say, we don't need one of them. We need a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the point is, your thing about not checking is they're trying to remain ignorant because once they know it's vulnerable, then they have to do something about it.
That is exactly.
Oh, dude, I live that.
Absolutely.
When I worked, Jeff and I both worked in VM. Yep. You know which vendor we worked for. But that was one of the first things I heard when I joined was like, look, Nessus is a great scanner, right? Finds a whole kinds of vulnerability. People would be like, it finds too many vulnerabilities. I'm like, yeah, that's like kind of what we do, right? Like we find all your vulnerabilities. Right. Like our mission is to find all your vulnerabilities. Right. And like, yeah, could you not do that? Because that just means a lot more work for us. I'm like, that's how it works. It's not how it works. And then you get the people that are like, well, could you reclassify this? Because like the CVSS score says it's like an 8.0. And then I have to fix 8.0 to 10.0. Like I have to fix it right away. Can you just like squelch it down to a 7.9 so I don't have to fix it? And also I was like, that's not how this works. Like that's not how it works.
But that's the practical reality of how it does work. I mean, and again,
it's true.
PCI since 2010, when version 2 was published,
drink again.
Drink again.
Cheers. Yeah.
But
smoking.
But this is why I advocate PCI so much. PCI said, you have the opportunity to recast or reclassify vulnerabilities, at least for internal vulnerability scans, not the external ones, and to take into account environmental parameters. It's an internet-based vulnerability. but the particular system that popped is 5 layers deep in the network, and the likelihood that somebody actually gets to this system and can exploit it is low, which is why we have a CVS version 3, and I think there's a version 4 now. I've been out of the vulnerability management
there is version
business.
4. Yeah.
But that again, it's a game, to be quite frank, of how do we know the vulnerabilities that we have to address versus the ones that we can just kind of take a pass on or take the risk on. And from a practical business perspective, it has to be done that way because of the economics of it. And
it's economics, but it's economics and incentives. And I think that's a great segue into my story number 14. When we talk about incentives, we have companies like this new company that's where did they say they were operating out of? This was a TechCrunch article titled "New Zero-Day Startup Offers."
Oh, right. Yeah.
$20 million for tools that can hack any smartphone.
Heck yeah.
United Arab Emirates-based startup
UAE.
It's
$20 million. Now, it reads from the article, apart from the highest bug bounty of $20 million, which applies to any mobile operating system, the company also offers bounties for exploits in various software. So you get 15 million for the same type of 0 days for Android devices and for iPhones, which is contradictory. Anyway, $10 million for Windows, $5 million for Chrome, and $1 million for Apple, Safari, and Microsoft Edge browsers, among others. The final statement is the most concerning thing for me. It's unclear who is behind this company and its customers. My question was, would you sell your O-Day to this company if you don't know who the company is and who is behind it? Because that go to the worst case scenario. It's a horrible nation state. It's an enemy nation state to maybe you live in the US and it's an enemy nation state of the US and you're like, oh, this company, like, I can make 20. Look, dude, $20 million is a lot of money. Like, that's tempting on. So I got to know, Dang. I can get 20 million.
It's ethics,
right?
Tempting money is what it is.
Yeah. Even after you pay taxes on that, it's still a boatload of money.
Yeah. Taxes.
Right.
Why would you?
Hey, I won't be bought for any amount of money. But then again,
I mean, if that's what you
how much money do you have?
Right. But that, that could be income, not what is the other kind of income? It's taxed more.
Capital gains.
Thank you. Capital gains. It's not capital gains because I work. I'm a vulnerability researcher. This is my job. This is income. It's not capital gains. So I pay even less taxes than capital gains. Right. Still, in either case, 20 million is a lot of money. But like this is I think like Charlie Miller and a lot of like the prolific bug bounty hunters have like been quoted on this. Like, what do you do? Like I'm fascinated with the ethical dilemma of, I got this thing and I'm going to sell it. Do I sell it knowing?
No, you can't.
What? I can't. But people have. People have justified this in their brains, Bill.
Of course they have.
Of course they have.
Right? Of course they have.
Here's the thing.
I got to tell you,
all of those.
Go ahead,
Bill. If you were sitting on an O-Day and you could make 20 million.
So the problem is,
it'd be a fucking dilemma, right?
I would be a dilemma.
I'm with you.
I will tell you,
even if you and I were together, find one and we would split it.
So.
You and I would both have the same ethical dilemma.
So
it's murder.
But Josh, right?
Could be, right.
Murder. And so I've done a lot of work for groups that are impacted by the groups that would pay millions of dollars for an exploit. And what I've met the people whose father was pulled out in front of the children and beaten and then murdered in front of the kids in the front yard because of things that they on Twitter.
Just to paint the picture, like that, we've all watched the documentary, right? Like that country has used this technology that you've given them, the weapon essentially you've given them to out someone who is an enemy of that whatever nation.
Yeah,
and that nation isn't like the U.S. They're just going in and being like,
so the U.S.
like it's a communist nation.
The U.S. you can't say it's not like the U.S. The U.S. has also done things,
done some shady shit. Right? No, completely agree, dude. Yep. We're not absolved of any of our sins as the U.S. Any country really can act in an unethical manner, is what we're saying. Like if you're using whatever weapons we give you to act in an unethical manner, you're right. It doesn't matter what country you are. It could be a bad situation for someone.
Yeah.
Hence the
It-
ethical
it-
dilemma.
I feel the need for a segue.
Yeah, I know. We got really,
Paul,
really deep
yeah.
there.
We have.
I didn't
bounced-
envision it going down that path.
Mm.
We have
Biggest story
bounced
to
the
end
term. We have bounced the term technical debt around a little bit, and I had an exchange with a colleague the last couple of days, and one of the articles that he pointed me to that he had written last week talks about the meaning of terms, and the particular term that he was spun up about was technical debt. You've used it in the classical definition, which is the vulnerabilities that are in code that get passed along.
I've not updated my shit. Therefore, when I do, it's going to be a bad day.
He had a conversation recently.
The longer you wait, the worse of a day you're going to have.
Right. He was spun up because he had a conversation with somebody recently where they were using the term technical debt, but with a different meaning, and that meaning it's sort of somewhat related, but somewhat different. But just the idea of using legacy systems. You can get into the semantics of it, but the larger conversation is, which I support, and I'm on the same soapbox always, is the words have meanings, and we have terminology in our business that have historical meanings that tend to get lost in translation and lost because of new marketing campaigns and so on and so forth. But my article number 4, it's an interesting read. It's a rant somewhat, but just the idea that are we allowed to change the definitions of terminology?
Yeah, but I think using legacy systems is a form of technical debt.
It is. It's a form.
For sure. Like it's not just software.
Well, so I'm curious. Like, so if Paul, if you were to say that the use of legacy systems, what's the first thing that pops in your head? What does that mean to you?
Oh God,
what does that mean?
It's like
XP.
So I'll give you examples.
Somebody running
XP.
It's whatever.
In banking, it's ATMs that run operating systems that are no longer supported. It's transportation systems that are using OS2 Warp. It's medical systems that are using older Windows operating system to run medical.
About industrial control, right? Critical infrastructure that's using systems that can't be taken down, that are running on things that are 10, 15, 20 years old.
I first encountered this in a big way at the university, that there was whatever the gear was. It was interesting. Like people can, you guys are all the guys and gals listening, right? You're all hackers. You can figure this out. I worked for Brown University. We did a lot of stuff, a lot of departments, a lot of research going on. That research sometimes required specialized equipment that was powered by a lot of times a PC that was running legacy operating systems and legacy software. So if I were to come along as a security person and be like, oh, you can't run that anymore. You got to upgrade. And they're like, but we can't. And there's a $10 million grant that we're still working on that has another 3 years on it. So what are you saying?
Yep.
We need to punt on, this money that's coming in the university. And also a lot of that research was a benefit to society, quite frankly, right? But it was running on legacy stuff.
I'll give you a different example, which is a little bit scary because I think all of us get on airplanes, but the air traffic control system is a really massive legacy system.
Yep.
So one time
floppy disk. We talk about floppy disks, right?
One time I found a copier that was controlled. So this copier only handled classified information, and it was being controlled by a Windows XP computer. And you're like, now I cannot have that, but also right. It's not connected to the internet. It's only
there used to be this massive printer at the university. I'm sure they outsource it now. When we're talking, 25 years ago, that printed all the paychecks for people. Like, how critical is that? So you're like, you can't have that printer or that Windows XP or NT system that's running this. And you're like, yeah, it's great, but no one's going to get paid, including you.
Right.
I'm like, oh, we need
approved.
This is what
approved.
but right.
Yeah.
This is when, as a security professional, like you grow up a little bit, right? Because I think we all come into this industry of going, well, everything needs to be on the latest version and all needs to be secure. To pull in a thread that we talked about a lot on this show, right?
Yes.
We all need to be on the latest version. We all need to be patched to the latest things. And that's not reality.
But ironically,
so, like all of us listening, or all of our listeners are like, yeah, I've been, because I've talked to our listeners. We're all in that situation. And I've been kind of bullish on, you need to upgrade this stuff. And like listeners come to us with all these use cases of exactly what we're describing. Like, yeah, but there's certain use cases. And I feel like that's when you grow up of, all right, how do I mitigate the risk? Right. Let the business run. Right. In those two things combined are where our specialties come in, where our maturity comes in as security professionals to go, okay, I need to think differently about this. How do I make it happen? How do I get rid of that risk? How do I let the people get paid and make sure we don't get hacked? It's not always, just throw away your old shit and implement new shit or patch all your, because you can't.
That's important, Paul. Like
that's the hard stuff. That's the hardest part of our job.
Well, and it's not just criticality; it's the expense and the time involved. I've got a client right now that is running an unsupported operating system for a lot of its infrastructure, and they're about to fail. And the client has told me, my point of contact says, we really need you to fail so that we can get them to actually
right. Sometimes failing compliance is the only way to get that. I agree. That's a strategy. 100%.
It's absolutely a strategy.
Where do you want to go from here? Do we want to go
talk
to
AI? We should talk AI.
So vulnerability discovery with an LLM powered patch diffing. I love patch diffing. Watchtower, in my opinion, has been doing an awesome job in patch diffing, right? Attackers have been doing a great job in patch diffing. Bishop Fox, who I hugely respect, had an article about patch diffing, and I like their approach. I actually sent this to our my internal research and engineering teams. I'm like, hey, check this out. This is kind of cool. And I'm not saying we need to go head over heels and adopt AI and it's going to solve all of our problems. And guess what? We as security researchers and professionals and engineers, we don't need to worry about patch diffing because AI is going to take care of it. But what I am saying is we're at a point now where AI technology can greatly enhance our capabilities in doing patch diffing because it's a very automatable AI task. Like here's
very good task for AI.
Right? Like here's the stuff we've patch diff before. It's also taking known information and comparing it against each other, doing that correlation. It's a great job for AI. Bishop Fox did a great job. They have a white paper that talks about how to do it. They also have an iterative methodology that they've implemented in an open source tool that kind of goes through it sounds like it goes through multiple prompts to get the best result. So first thing they do is they decompile all the functions and ask the LLM, this is a beautiful task in reverse engineering for LLM, because you take a binary and you decompile all the functions and they just get kind of random names. We've seen this. I mean, in the 20 plus years, we've all been in cybersecurity. We've seen this, right? Like you reverse engineer, even some de-obfuscating JavaScript, and the function just has a basic name. And for a human to go, what is that function actually doing is a lot of effort. But an LLM can go, oh, I think that function's doing this, and therefore I'll name it that. So they do that first, and then they do another prompt. They input the text of the vendor security advisory as information and go, oh, do the patch diff from there. It's a perfect, a great usage, I should say, not perfect, but a great usage of LLM technology.
It's a proper usage. It's
100%.
I've expanded my saying, so I'm going to inflict it upon you. AIs can collate and correlate, but they cannot causate.
Correct. And they're not thinking for you, but they're taking that manual process away, taking the inputs, doing that correlation, on large data sets. And if you follow the like Watchtower posts, they're like, oh, we did the patch diff and there was 300, changed functions or like an exorbitant amount of changed code in the process, using AI to kind of weed out, like, where is that problem? Like, here's the vendor's advisory. Here's all the shit that changed. Like, I don't need the answer necessarily, but like out of those 300, give me the top 5 or top 10 that I need to look at as a human.
Yep.
That's a perfect usage of AI.
Because then we're making efficiency the goal,
Yes,
and that's
it's efficiency.
That's an appropriate goal.
It doesn't replace the human. You can't,
Right.
dude. You can't like the people that do this work are amazing. Like the researchers I work with are like absolutely amazing in identifying vulnerabilities and exploiting them. But having tools to help you get to that shit faster is kind of where I see this my story number 13.
Given that the number that I've seen bandied about, I don't know if it's exact or not, but AI is not 100% accurate. Let's say it's 80-85% accurate. That's kind of the range that I've heard. Is it safe? Is it okay to rely on the AI efficiencies?
I still think you need to validate.
You always need a peer review of the answers. Always.
So
always.
I think this continues to be my stand, Jeff, on this, is that an expert in the field, the AI makes them more efficient. Like somebody that's new or on it, like you have to know what you're asking, and you have to understand the output, and it will make you significantly, but you have to review it for sure.
Well, because you need to know what questions to ask,
right. And you have to know when it's wrong, and you have to know when it's
yes,
like
I'm like, dude, you're going down a wrong. Right. I like it again. I was using Claude Code today to analyze firmware, and it's only because I've reverse engineered firmware manually that I know what questions to ask. That when it produces output, I can go, I don't think that's quite right.
Right.
You need to change that, or I'm like, oh. Well, that's spot on. Or like you've led me down a path. Like I'm done with you now. I got what I need to go validate it. Right. Yeah.
Now a different spin on AI. My stories 1, 2, and 3. I was originally approached by this journalist, a friend of mine, because NIST published a sort of an open call for input for how do you begin to put security parameters around the use of AI in organizations. Which is the guy I was talking to, Evan Schumann, he was interested in it because the NIST document that was put out, which I think is technically my story number 2, which is the actual document that they put out, it is a pretty good summary of sort of framing what needs to be done in AI, but they don't really come up with any solutions. They don't offer any solutions or guidance. That's what the public call is about.
Sure.
What thoughts, Josh?
So there is, we should get Sunil on here. We've had Sunil on here.
We have.
And we should get Gadi Avran on here, actually. So I'll
love Gadi and Sunil.
Oh my God.
What is their company? People. Their company's awesome.
Gnostic.
They were sponsored.
Gnostic.
Yeah.
It's spelled with a K, K-N-O-S-T-I-C.
Yeah.
And I will continue to claim, correctly, by the way, that I came up with one of their terms, which is knowledge access management. They are a knowledge access management tool. Their tool, Gnostic, is a tool that says, hey, if Bill, the mailroom guy, asks how much money have we made this year? And
Bill, you're the mailman guy. Like,
hey, how much revenue have we made this year as the mailroom guy?
And
Gnostic's the mailroom guy. Yeah. I feel like you're the guy in L. You're in L. Remember Elf in the mailroom? That's Bill. Yeah.
But the LLM goes and pulls all the different sources and gets all the different information to correlate and contextualize the answer. But then Gnostic goes, whoa, Bill doesn't have access to that answer.
And Bill puts a lot of syrup in his coffee.
Oh my God, it's that entire bottle. You ever seen chug the entire bottle? It's unbelievable. Disgusting. So the point is that Gnostic will stop him and it'll give him a generic answer. We're doing fine this year or whatever. So Gnostic is what I'm calling a knowledge access management system, similar to a privilege access management system.
Yeah.
So it controls the ability of a person a user or whatever to access that inferred or collated and contextualized data. I think that's going to be a huge part of security in enterprise level.
Interesting segue into my AI story, my story number 10, and how web scraping actually works. Now, it's interesting. I'm really excited, and because in the past year, look, also throughout my career, if you've ever tried to write software that does any kind of web crawling or scraping,
listen, it's hard.
You've run into challenges.
Yes, it's hard.
Even it is hard.
Yeah,
it's a pain in the
ass.
And
it works tonight, but tomorrow, why doesn't it fucking work?
But it's interesting as hackers, as a general term, how often we're like, you know what? I need something that goes to crawl and scrape this data from websites on the internet.
I gotta tell you, Paul, it happens every month
for different purposes. Sometimes it's nefarious. Yes. Sometimes it's for the benefit of humanity. Yep. It's gonna help people if I can do this. Sometimes it's gonna hurt people if I can do this. Right? The Shodan is an example where help and hurt are kind of hand in hand. Kind of thing. Which Shodan's a great site,
and Shodan has a great API.
Unbelievable. It's all, but scraping in general as a computer science problem is hard. And so when I first started seeing, probably a year ago, projects that use LLMs to help with scraping, I'm like, oh, if LLMs in AI can help with scraping, I'm like, this is going to be awesome.
Just now browse that site and tell me all of X, whatever X is.
Take that data from not just one site, but multiple sites and put it in a parsable format so that I can derive information from that data is always what we've been about.
For sure.
Right? I could give you countless examples in my career when I've tried to use it. So as an attacker, I've been go crawl and scrape every website. Tell me which ones have web interfaces that have a login. Take a screenshot of that and give it to me in a digestible format. Right? We used to do that manually before AI, lots of projects that would do that. Also from a business standpoint, I'm like, you know what, go scrape the large conference website that lists all the vendors who are going to be exhibiting, and I want a list of all those vendors, and then I want to enrich that data with what space they're in, what stage of funding they're at, so we can market to them, so we can sell to them, so we can do analyst stuff, so I can go, you know what, I want to focus on this space. Tell me which vendors are in this space that are exhibiting that conference. So when I go to that conference, I can go to those vendors. I'm like, hey, you're in an interesting space. I want to talk to you, right? And websites hate when you crawl and scrape them.
Yep.
It's always been a back and forth.
It's always been a cat and mouse.
Always. Dude, 100. Yeah. Dude, the VX Underground is an example I put in our private communications with us.
So
right?
Paul,
so I'll disclose it publicly.
After you put that in our private chat, I was like,
You did the same thing I did?
And
you ran the same roadblocks I did?
I did. I couldn't.
Because the smartest engineers that I work with in my day job, who I love through and through, also had challenges and was like, you know what, I'm just going to download it manually. I'm like, okay, I feel much better now. So for those that VX Underground put out 7 million Windows drivers and made those archives available, but put technology on their site. They're like, dude, we don't want you scraping it via scripts in an automated manner, and went to great lengths to make
so Paul puts it out on this private chat that I'm like, oh, Paul, you suck, I can do that, right? And whoa.
But that's what I was hoping for. Right. I was hoping my friends would validate. I tried, I failed.
Yeah.
Can anyone else do better?
Yeah.
And dude, it was a challenge, right? Yeah. But now, go to my story number 10. It's interesting. There's situations where I believe that website owners should categorize the data tag the data, stuff that should be scrapable and crawlable, because we're going to use it for, and it's hard. What's your intent? They don't know the intent, so they assume all the intent is bad, right?
Well, I think,
but there's situations for example, I gotta be careful what I say. Let's say you were to crawl a vendor's website to get all the firmware, and then create a hash of that, and then cross-reference that against the gear that you have running in your environment to find counterfeit gear. That's beneficial to everyone, right? beneficial to the vendor.
Wrong.
Because no. It's beneficial to the vendor because if I can help people identify counterfeit gear, they're going to remove that from their environment. They're going to go to that vendor, Josh, and they're going to buy new gear.
No, I get that, but you're not. No, wrong. You are absolutely correct in what you say. It is not beneficial to the vendor because the vendor counts that set of firmware as intellectual property and a valuation to their business. What you've done is stolen their intellectual property. I know it's not stealing. Just roll with me.
Yeah, it's not stealing. It's
not stealing. I know that. But what you've done is you've collated their intellectual property and you've taken a piece of their IP and therefore their valuation goes down. So to the vendor, to the people that run that vendor, it is not.
Yeah, but what's the difference if I go download one image versus all of them?
Big difference, dude.
It's on the internet. It's on the internet.
Yes, but it's the usage.
What's the difference between doing it in an automated scraping fashion or doing it manually?
That's the issue, right? No. That's the issue.
Okay.
But now the other scenario is when we prompt an LLM, the LLM goes on our behalf, scrapes the information and gives it back to us. I'm not going. So ZDNet published this article. Yeah. And like, dudes, I get it.
When was the last time that anybody's read a web page? Never.
Yeah. But that's the issue now. The issue now. Folks but I get it. Like from their perspective, if I had created ZDNet, I'd be like, this is fucking terrible because I want people to go to my website so I can track them, so I can show them ads, so I can make a living. I get both sides of it. But now the LLMs are going, I'm going to the website. But now privacy and security people like us are like, well, this is great. I don't have to go to your website. I don't have to look at your ads.
Agreed.
I don't have to look at the friggin' pop-up. It's like, hey, you're running an ad blocker. Like, please support us. Blah, 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 blah.
I had this conversation.
I just want to consume your public article. I don't want you to track me.
I had this conversation
I don't want to look at any of your ads.
I don't remember the last time I did a Google search. I ask LLMs. No. LLMs is my Google now. Tell me the answer.
I use 100%, but I use Google to inform my LLM searches and back and forth.
For sure.
So sometimes
Gemini in the Google search engine is actually pretty good. It's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better, for sure.
But I have half a dozen Perplexity windows open at any given time.
Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT. Right, I'm bouncing between all four of those to do my build. To your point, web searching, research. And those are going to the websites. They're aggregating the data. Yep. They're presenting it to me. I'm like,
changed my workflow. It's just
right. Like it's great. I don't have to go deal with your, also there's the, gated content, which we can get around through various mechanisms. But it's interesting. I think we need to just understand the content creators of the world. Like, I don't want to pick on ZDNet, but this happens to come from ZDNet. But like their opinion is the AIs pull information.
And they're right.
Then instead of sending readers to the site where the author wrote the piece, they simply present information
absolutely
before anyone visits the site. And they say AI scraping is a parasitic behavior that's devastating to website traffic.
They're absolutely
I don't disagree with that. It is, and I don't pretend to have the answer. But think about the benefits of, I want to go on the internet. I want to grab a whole bunch of information. I want to put it in a programmable, digestible format like JSON.
Yeah.
How you could use that to your benefit, but also to the detriment of sites that are making their living on that.
And they're absolutely right. And I am a huge contributor to it because like I'm doing exactly what they're angry about. And what this is going to lead to is the enshittification of the internet, and the internet is going to die, right? Like, because it's all going to be fucking garbage, and they're absolutely right.
You want a little inside baseball? Do you want to know how bad, you know how ugly this is going to get, Bill? The providers will poison the data. If they notice crawling, they will actually feed you
do it.
Bogus information.
Do it. Like,
but that's what they're forced to do, right? Based on our conversation. Can you blame?
I can't do it.
Right.
Do it.
But then that costs everyone money, basically, because now we have to validate everything that we're scraping on. It's an interesting. I don't know how it's going to end.
Well, it all started like, so Paul, it all
yeah.
started, remember when Google, like before the whole AI revolution or whatever, but when you would Google something and it would show you an answer box to the right or whatever, and then here are the results.
Yeah.
And I remember back, whenever that was 5 years ago, people were upset then. Like,
Right.
Like people are not visiting our site because Google answered the question.
Because SEO has changed.
Yeah.
SEO has changed 100%.
Massively.
And
Well,
look,
and
hey,
maybe
we're
SEO just needs to evolve.
It is
and
evolving,
adapt.
but not everyone's catching up, Jeff, right? So like even to our own,
because it's
detriment,
hard and it
Security
costs
Weekly,
money, and what we're talking about is money.
Someone
Ultimately.
prompted me to like run some experiments on like asking LLMs about security podcasts. And I was like, why aren't we in those results?
Mm.
And it gave me very frank answers like, oh, you've been acquired. You've got a network of podcasts. It makes it hard to navigate. And also during acquisition, you've been consolidated into multiple sites, and that makes it hard for SEO. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. Oh, Bill, you're on mute.
I wasn't talking to you, Paul.
Oh, sorry. I knew we had other people there. You're talking to your cat, which I love that you have a Victorian home and a black cat. I feel like that's very appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, dear
And
God.
ghosts.
It's very fitting.
Yeah, and ghosts.
Somehow, Paul, I feel like we need to wrap this up.
I do too. Well, thank you everyone for listening and watching this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. That will conclude our episode for this week. Over and out.